Chapter 2. The Emperor's Last Command. The last Black Crusade had broken like a tidal wave upon the Imperium. Cadia lay in ruins, her armies butchered by uncaring hosts, the fleets of the Imperium savaged beyond repair, and try as they might the warriors of the Adeptus Astartes, the most powerful soldiers the galaxy had ever known, could not stem the tide of demons and traitor marines streaming towards Holy Terra. While they could not defeat the forces of chaos, they could definitely bloody them. The demonette hissed as Captain Titus rammed his blade into its chest, splattering his armored gauntlets with black blood. The servant of chaos tried desperately to free itself, but the space marine was having none of that. With his free hand, Titus grabbed the abomination by the throat and with a roar pulled upwards, splitting the demonette in half and showering the ground with blood before the demonette dissolved into a cloud of warp energy. Titus charged, hitting the rest of the demons with as much force and rage as he could muster. His blade flashed forward, severing limbs and heads as he pushed forward, heedless of the monster's attempts to slow him. Titus spun around, plunging the combat blade deep into the head of another demonette while simultaneously stomping a second flat beneath the might of his power armor. Another demonette latched onto the ultramarine captain's shoulders, clawing for his head. He dipped forward, using his massive bulk to fling the demon off his shoulders, but before he could recover, a second demon threw itself at him. The weight of the demon slowed him down, and soon 3 more were clawing at his armor, trying to get at the squishy human beneath. Titus' deliverance came when the largest of the demonettes screamed as a blade bisected it. The demons turned as a second space marine, this one clad in green armor and a cape of scales, slammed into the group. Seeing his opening, Titus killed the demon currently pinning him while his savior dispatched the remaining demons. "You'll need to shape up if you are going to survive as the new master of Macragge," said Vulcan Heston, Forgefather of the Salamanders. He offered a hand to Titus, pulling the captain up from where he lay. "Calgar has fallen?" Titus asked. "And Sicarius, and Tigurius, well over half your chapter. They died with honor, though, and at least Fateweaver's armies will not arrive. Little comfort, but it is better than nothing." Titus looked across the battlefield, his vision marred by smoke and piles of rubble. "What of our forces here?" "I am unsure, but I would say several thousand guards, maybe about half their number in marines." Heston replied. "More are coming, but the heretics have cut off our supply by air and it will take some time before we can win it back. If you really want to continue, Titus, I suggest broadening your senses a bit more." Titus rolled his eyes and replaced his combat blade with a bolter. "This position is undefendable, we'll have to pull back to the palace and reorganize. I'll move forward and see what forces I can find." Heston nodded as Titus rushed forward. The shattered bodies of demons and humans littered the ground, making it hard for even the space marine to run. Brief memories of the Graia campaign came to mind, wading through the bodies of orcs and heretics alike being just as arduous as it was now. It had been worse during several missions in the Death Watch, where Titus and the other chosen marines tore through thousands of alien monstrosities before being cast through the warp and spat out here. Titus pushed these memories out of his mind and ducked as a squad of corrupted guardsmen fired, last bolts and plasma impacting the ground behind him. He rolled forward and fired, the hypervelocity rounds tearing the heretics to bloody pieces. More heretics and demons advanced, forcing Titus to take shelter behind a burned-out Leman Russ. "Captain? Thank the Emperor you're here." Titus turned and saw 3 more Astartes, 2 Ultramarines and a Salamander, along with a small group of Cadian shock troopers. "I suppose it's Lord Macragge now, but that can wait," Titus said before reloading. "What happened to the rest of your squadron?" "We were ambushed by a heretic sorcerer. Our squad was torn apart before a predator drove the demons off," the lead Ultramarine answered. "I was separated from my unit by that last wave of demonettes," the Salamander said. "And you?" Titus nodded to the Cadians. "Our commander was cut down by mutants, my lord." The nearest Cadian replied. "We fell back, but nearly half our squad was lost." Titus muttered a curse under his breath before poking around the side of the wreck to fire another burst, dropping several mutants. "The heretics are pressing in. We are falling back to a more defendable position. My brothers will provide covering fire until you can reach the Imperial Palace." "Yes, my lord. May the Emperor protect you." Titus nodded in thanks before leaping out from behind the ruined Leman Russ, followed by the other marines. There was the scream of a Melta firing and several demons were vaporized, further depriving the heretical forces of a chance to attack Titus. He and the 2 Ultramarines fired, their bolters clattering away while the Salamander reduced another group of demons to charred husks with his Melta. "Having trouble?" A voice crackled through Titus' Vox communicator. "Cantor, thank the Emperor it's you." Listen, I need support as soon as possible. Tactical fallback is not working so well, is it? Titus rolled his eyes again. It's going fine, except for the part where I used myself as live bait. Get used to it, that's what we were created for. The communication cut off before 5 frag missiles slammed into the pavement ahead, showering the demons with shrapnel. Smaller bits bounced harmlessly off Titus' armor, although dust and bits of shredded demon made it difficult to see. We've done our job. Fall back to the palace. The other space marines nodded and began backtracking, their bolters and melta still spitting death into the horde of demons. The demons attempted another advance, but a second salvo of missiles, supported by autocannon and lascannon fire, drove them back long enough for Titus and the Astartes to escape. In front of the gates to the Imperial Palace was a veritable fortress. Barricades of the highest quality had been constructed, sheltering scores of lascannons and heavy bolters from demonic assault. Guardsmen of all types, ranging from Cadians to Valhallans, held their positions at the guns, pouring fire down into the plaza below. Supporting them were fragments of countless Space Marine chapters, the mighty warriors helping to mend gaps in the guardsmen's lines and deal with larger foes. Titus spotted Space Wolves, Imperial Fists, Ultramarines, Salamanders, and several other chapters he could not identify off the top of his head, all working in fluid motion to smite the foes of the Emperor. Titus knew that this was only a small sector in the ring of steel that surrounded the palace, but his training as an Astartes told him to avoid worrying about their status. Other commanders and generals in those regions would be better suited for that, and he needed to remain focused on the immediate threat. He discarded his blood-stained combat blade, searching around for a chainsword among the various stacks of supplies. You survived, Titus. Consider yourself lucky. Titus turned and saw Pedro Cantor, chapter master of the Crimson Fists, walking towards him. Most of our brothers have fallen to our enemies. They died fighting for the Imperium. We cannot ask for more than that. Cantor nodded and led Titus into the fortifications, the 2 Astartes ignoring a blast from a heretic plasma cannon. We have enough ammunition to last us a week's siege, but I can't say the same for our numbers. The Crimson Fist commander explained. When will the Titan legions arrive? 2 days, at most. You missed Shrike when he heard of the delay. He tore apart a heretic rhino without his lightning claws, he was so enraged. And he always says we're the ones who are too ill-tempered. Titus muttered. Do we at least have any other forces en route? The Space Wolves and 4 regiments of catechins are trying their best, but they were caught up by traitor marines in the nearest hive city. The only real support are a few Baneblades, but they won't arrive until tomorrow morning. I'd ask for you to try and contact the rest of your chapter, but then there aren't many warriors of Ultramar left on Terra, now are there? Not enough if they promote me to Lord Macragge, Titus sighed. What of the Grey Knights, and didn't Commander Dante say he would provide support? The Blood Angels are trying to draw some of the heretics away from the palace, but Dante is at the Eternity Gate. Cantor's voice became more annoyed as he continued. The Grey Knights are holed up inside the palace. They say they're waiting to defend the Emperor, but personally I think Drago's waiting until we've broken the heretics before he makes his entrance and claims victory for himself. Figures. There was an explosion as a Chaos Predator was torn asunder by Croc missiles. If Drago wants to play hero, let him. We have a war to win. Agreed. I need you to locate what's left of your chapter and move to support the guard. I will continue to provide heavy support and see if I can work out our coordination issues. I understand. Deep within the caverns of the Imperial Palace lay the Golden Throne. Few creations could match the intricacy and splendor of the throne, even though most Mechanicus adepts dreamed of such creations. Exact dimensions of the throne were a closely guarded secret, but it dominated the massive throne room, and was adorned with as much Imperial icons and calligraphy as could be fitted. Before the throne stood dozens of Adeptus Custodes, the golden-clad bodyguards silent as battle raged outside and completely indifferent to the few Mechanicus adepts and Grey Knights milling before the throne. And strapped inside, his head and torso exposed, was the Emperor himself. Gone were the days of his majesty, all that remained was a dried husk of flesh and bone, shriveled and grey from thousands of years of death. His hair, once a deep raven black, was all but gone, the last few strands as white as bone. His teeth and nails had long since rotted away, and his eyes were milky white and crusted from lack of use. The only sign of life came from the beeping of the machines attached to the throne and from a small line of drool running down his face. Has anything changed? Asked Kaldor Drago, Supreme Grand Master of the Grey Knights. No, my lord. The Mechanicus attendant said, drifting away from the throne and the Emperor. But the forces of chaos are marching on us as we speak. Shrieked Drago, grabbing the attendant with his free hand. He is supposed to wake from his slumber and slay the heretics. Why isn't he doing so? I am not one to doubt his will, my lord. The attendant said he has a plan for everything, and we are not worthy enough to judge his plan. Well, he shouldn't be so secretive. Drago released the attendant and began to pace across the floor in front of the throne. Why are we just sitting here waiting? There has to be some way too. It is not possible or ethical to attempt to speed up the Emperor's awakening. Relax, my lord, he will awaken when he so wishes. I wish you would stop interrupting me. I am sorry, my lord. The attendant drifted off to another part of the room, leaving Drago alone. He considered going to the Custodes for relief, but the silent sentinels did not even acknowledge he was there. He continued to pace before two more Grey Knights and some guardsmen burst into the room. My lord, the lead guardsman said before kneeling, we have heard rumors of demonic forces attempting to infiltrate this room. We came here to see if it was true. There are no demons here. Although that pesky attendant has been giving me some trouble. Because you wish to wake the Emperor before his plan can be fulfilled. The attendant called. Silence. If I wanted your opinion I would have asked for it, Drago snapped. Funny, and I was told the Grey Knights were more open in the sight of the Emperor, said a deep voice, dripping with malice and hatred. Drago and the other humans in the room turned to see a hulking brute clad in warped Terminator armor march out of the shadows surrounded by a score of traitor marines and lesser demons. It seems as though I was misinformed. Before Drago and the others could react, the intruder let out a roar and charged forward, the other chaos spawn firing into the group. Drago raised his weapon to attack, but the intruder swatted him away with a mighty blow, the Grand Master slamming against the wall and going limp. The guardsmen returned fire, killing several demons, but the traitor marines advanced and obliterated them. The last remaining Grey Knight fired several times at the Chaos Leader, who responded by grabbing the Astartes by the head and twisting, severing the knight's torso from the rest of his body. Shame what passes for a lapdog of the Emperor these days. Abaddon the Despoiler growled, tossing the corpse of his last victim away. The traitors had little time to reorganize before the Custodes attacked, the golden-clad sentinels advancing towards the heretical forces. Demons and traitor marines roared and charged, slamming full-on into the Custodes. The ringing of swords against guardian spears filled the throne room as Custodes and Abaddon's forces clashed, the bodies of the dying making it hard for even the most battle-hardened warriors to fight effectively. Abaddon tore through another custodian, tossing the shredded corpse over his head before lunging into another group. Even with their training, the Custodes could not stand against Abaddon's fury, and soon the talon of Horus was coated red from the blood of the fallen. Satisfied, Abaddon turned to the Emperor, the corpse god still unmoving upon his throne. So, we finally meet face to face, false Emperor, Abaddon spat at the base of the throne before continuing. Your defenses and armies have fallen, and the Lords of Chaos are ready to sweep the galaxy clean. You have failed, Emperor, and while it would bring me great joy to allow you to live and watch your precious Imperium crumbled away, my masters feel that killing you will only speed up our victory. The armies of man will be broken, and they will swear allegiance to their true masters. Abaddon laughed, a deep sound that could chill the bones of even the hardiest Astartes. I hope this causes you as much pain as possible. With another roar, Abaddon swung his mighty hand towards the Emperor, fully intending to take the corpse god's head off. But before his strike could connect, a yellow glow enveloped his hand and stopped it mere inches from the Emperor's face. Do you honestly think I would leave myself defenseless? A disembodied voice echoed throughout the room. What sorcery is this? Abaddon roared, trying hard to pull his hand free of the glow. The exact schematics were lost during the Age of Strife, the voice explained. I had to create it from scratch based on what I remembered of the era before. It was designed to catch projectiles and stop them from killing important leaders, but increase the power tenfold and it will stop near anything, unless I allow it through. Abaddon growled in frustration as he tried to free his hand, but every time he struggled the field grew stronger. Release me, then present yourself so we may fight like true warriors. True warriors? You are no more true than a newborn catechin who has just grasped their first knife. The voice laughed. As it stands, though, I have need of you. What? Well, I say you, but I really mean the warp energy that has infused your being. Over the last few centuries I've finally found a way to cure myself, so that I can finally walk amongst my people and lead them back into the light. However, the thousands of psychers sacrificed to me were not enough, their warp presence being too weak and short-lived. You, on the other hand, have lived most of your life in the warp, it has infused your entire being, molded you into the beast standing before me. Also, Drago's blood, while not optimum in the least, will be enough to remove the demonic presence from your warp energies and allow me to rebuild. You bastard. Abaddon swung with his free hand, but that too was enveloped in a yellow glow. He could only watch at the head of the corpse Emperor turn towards him, leering all the way. My goal was to kill the Chaos Gods, the Emperor said, and I have awoken to do just that. A blinding light filled the room, engulfing Abaddon and the Emperor and causing the traitor Marines and demons to stagger back. Even the Custodes stopped their attack, taking the time to reorganize. The light continued to expand and glow brighter until a jet of warp flame shot from the center of the light, engulfing 2 of the traitor Marines and vaporizing them before they even had a chance to cry out. The light faded, and all present in the room, demonic or otherwise, could only stare in awe. Gone was the corpse of a dying king. In its place stood a man, taller and broader than any mortal to have ever lived. Muscles rippled beneath a gold tunic, and his body was wrapped in a golden glow of warp energies. He gazed across the room, his eyes locating the demonic hosts readying themselves for an attack. The traitor Marines fired, their demonic enhanced weapons clattering as the lesser demons rushed forward, weapons raised. The Emperor raised his hand and a wall of warp energy surged outward, knocking the heretical forces to the ground. A ball of flame formed around his left hand as he advanced, the heretics trying in vain to stand and fight. He thrust his hand forward and launched the fireball, slaying a score of traitors before assaulting the lesser demons, warp flame and lightning arcing off his arms and destroying all that stood in his way. The Custodes rallied and charged, laying into the traitors with bolter and guardian spear. The last survivor was a traitor Marine, his legs and left arm mangled from a blast of warp flame. "Why your defiance is in vain, false Emperor," the traitor said as the Emperor advanced. "The Lords of Chaos will smite you and devour all that serve under your name. They failed to kill me while I was entombed in the throne, when I was weak and helpless," the Emperor snarled, raising the traitor up with his psychic powers. "I doubt they will be able to slay me when I have regained my power. Now, taste my wrath." The traitor squirmed before being engulfed in warp flame, his armor and flesh melting into liquid beneath the Emperor's fury. The Emperor released his victim and turned, singling out the terrified attendant lying petrified on the ground. I am sorry for disturbing you, my lord." The attendant stammered. The Emperor walked towards the attendant, the lesser human curling into a tight ball. I only meant to serve you. Please, show mercy on your servant. I did not know the ruinous power were here. Please, do not purge me. Be at ease, my son." The Emperor knelt next to the attendant, placing a hand against his head. "You performed your duty to the fullest, and I cannot ask for more than that. I foresaw the ruinous powers breaking in here to slay me. You were merely an unnecessary victim. Any sins you may have procured have been absolved." Thank you, my lord," the attendant said as the Emperor helped him to his feet. "Now, we must not waste time. The ruinous powers are advancing and my sons can only hold them for so long. The barrier between the Materium and the Immaterium has grown weak, and I must act upon its weakness. Fetch me my armor and weapons, then prepare yourself." "Why yes, my lord." The attendant scurried off, leaving the Emperor alone with his Custodes. For a moment he opened his soul to the Immaterium, feeling as the storms of the warp lashed against his aura. It was nothing new to the Emperor, but finally stepping back into the physical realm. It was a feeling he would not soon forget. He was interrupted by the sound of the Eternity Gate opening. The Emperor watched as a score of Astartes in blood-red armor entered, led by a figure clad in golden armor and jump pack. "Damn the traitors if they think they can slip past me," Commander Dante growled, not yet noticing the Emperor standing before him. "They will suffer my wrath for daring to." Dante stopped when he realized that not only were the traitors dealt with, but the Emperor was standing before him, alive and well. Dante blinked twice before kneeling, his fellow blood angels joining him in reverence to the Emperor. "Commander," the Emperor said, "why do you worry?" "I do not worry, my lord." "Don't lie to me, I know full well that worry lays upon your soul." Dante was silent for a moment before speaking. "For many years I have served you, and I swore upon my life that I will defend both the Imperium and you. But now that the heretics have broken through to you, I know that my vigilance has failed me." Dante lowered his head. "Do with me as you wish." There was a pause before the Emperor spoke. "Commander Dante, you have not failed me. The forces of chaos had to attack me if I was to be able to revive myself. Your time will come, but I will not be the one to force you towards it." "Thank you, my lord." Dante nodded and rose, the blood angels joining him. There was the sound of machinery being pushed aside before the Mechanicus adept returned, pulling several trolleys on which a suit of golden power armor and a master-crafted sword rested. "Now we must hurry," the Emperor said, using the powers of the warp to lift his armor. "The forces of chaos are preparing to attack." A lull had grasped this section of the battlefield, immersing everything in silence. On one side of the war zone, the loyalist guardsmen and Astartes dug in behind their fortifications, preparing themselves for the coming onslaught. On the other side, more powerful demons stepped out of breaches in the Imperium, bringing with them lesser demons to replace the scores that had been butchered by the loyalists. The demons roared and shouted curses at the humans, hoping to intimidate them enough to break. Titus was silent, taking the time to steady himself. He could hear commissars and officers speaking to their fellow guardsmen, rallying them to the defense of the imperial palace. Vox Communications had informed Titus that the heretics were attacking all along the line, driven by some force that the loyalists could not fully understand. "If the Imperium is to die today," he thought, "then it shall be known that we died with honor." Sensing their foes building up their defiance, the demons roared and charged, their weapons raised to reap the loyalists before them. The first weapons to fire were the lascannons and missile launchers. The heavy lashbolts easily passed through the bodies of lesser demons and badly wounded several greater demons, while frag missiles cut down many in a storm of shrapnel. The demons charged on, heedless of loss, before running into a wall of heavy bolters and sniper rifles. Demonic bodies exploded into black mist as heavy shells tore through flesh and bone, but only enraged the charging enemy. Next came what few assault cannons the loyalists had, the rapid-firing weapons shredding the first rank of demons and tearing into the second rank. The demons would have none of it, and a blast of warp flame washed over the barricade, roasting several gun crews and badly maiming a number of guards and Astartes. To make matters worse, the flames wrapped around a large supply of bolter ammunition, superheating their charges and blasting a hole the size of a dreadnought in the fortifications, the explosion showering the defenders with dust and the shattered remains of their comrades. Bolter fire from traitor marines tore into the defenders, shattering guardsmen and Astartes alike, and the demonic assault pressed forward. Finally, the multitude of meltas, lasguns, plasma guns and bolters the loyalists had on hand opened fire, their position becoming obscured by a cloud of light from hundreds of muzzle flashes. The demons returned fire, their accuracy not hindered in the least, and on both sides casualties began to pile up, the corpses of the fallen bogging down the defenders and tripping up the attackers. Titus ducked as a stream of bolter shells raced over his head. Behind him, he could hear the screams of guardsmen torn asunder by the attackers, their flak jackets proving useless against the armor-piercing shells. Muttering yet another curse, he leveled his bolter and fired, demons and heretics bursting as he sent shell after shell downrange. Lashbolts and shells exploded around Titus, showering the Astartes with dust and rubble and throwing off Titus' aim slightly. "We can't hold out like this for much longer," another Astartes shouted over the din. "Tell me something I don't already know," Titus said, firing the last of his current clip of ammunition into a group of plague bearers, the bloated corpse demons exploding into a shower of green ooze. "Contact Cantor and have him lay down more suppressing fire, then go back and bring some more troops to the front." "Yes, Captain." The Ultramarine's head exploded as a bolt pierced his visor and detonated. The corpse staggered and collapsed, a river of blood collecting on the ground. Titus cursed and fired again, catching the traitor marine that had killed the Astartes and severing its legs from the rest of its body. Titus heard someone leap down next to him and saw Heston, the Forge Father's armor flecked with burns and scratches. "I heard you were looking for more troops?" Heston was soon joined by a squad of salamanders, their meltas and flamers roasting the attacking demons as they fired. "Before you ask, you left your Vox on, you need to be more careful lest the traitors can listen in." "Apologies." "Don't apologize to me, I am not your commanding officer." Heston raised his bolt pistol and fired, killing another pair of plague bearers. "Besides, your section is the one with the heaviest concentration of demons, it only makes sense I come and bring relief. And I am thankful for that." Heston nodded and fired again, this time using the gauntlet of the forge. A jet of flame swept over the demons and heretics, their flesh and armor cracking beneath the intense heat. "Burn in the fires of absolution, hellspawn!" Heston shouted, sweeping the gauntlet across the demon host once more. The demons turned their fire towards Heston, but the master-crafted armor the Forge Father wore was more than enough to repel their fire. Heston attacked once more, sending even more demons screaming back to the Imperium. "If Drago is waiting to play heroics," Titus shouted, firing off another burst into the chest of an advancing demon. "Now's the perfect time to show up." The demon roared and raised his lash, preparing to slaughter the puny Astartes that dared to stand against it. Before the demon could strike, however, a blast of lightning struck it in the chest, knocking it back and causing the demon to trip and crush a collection of demonettes. As the demon attempted to recover, its body exploded outward in a column of fire which consumed all nearby demons and heretics. Titus and Heston paused for a moment, unsure of what exactly had happened. "I didn't know we still had any psychers amongst our ranks," Titus said. "We don't." The two space marines turned and saw, standing at the door of the Imperial Palace, a man clad in golden armor. His entire body was wrapped in glowing warp energy, the power sword he carried flowing like fire. He raised his left hand and sent forth a blast of fire, vaporizing 2 squads of traitor marines in an instant. It's him," Titus said, lowering his bolt gun. "He has returned." The Emperor stepped forward, followed by what remained of the Grey Knights, Custodes, and Dante's Blood Angels. "Sons of the Imperium," he shouted, his voice carrying across the battlefield, "I, your Emperor, have risen from the Golden Throne to smite the forces of chaos once and for all. You have fought well, and the demonic hosts have fallen to your will. Now, rise up, my sons. Strike back at the demons and drive them back to the warp." With that, he vanished in a flash of light, appearing again right in front of the chaos hordes. His sword flashed with light as dozens of demons were sent flying, their strength and armor useless against his wrath. Heston climbed over the barricade, raising the spear of Vulcan high over his head. "Forward, sons of the Emperor! For the Imperium!" Every human, Astartes or guardsman, let out a cheer before surging forward, the Astartes acting as a shield to protect the lightly armored guardsmen. The forces of humanity slammed into the heretics, demons and mutants being cut down by the blades and fists of the Space Marines. In the center of it all stood the Emperor, his golden armor stained black from demonic blood. The Emperor's attack were fluid, his blade moving faster than the mortal eye could track. Demons and traitors found themselves bisected before they had realized they were being attacked, their bodies being crushed beneath the boots of the Emperor. With his titanic might he tossed demons and mutants aside, rendering them only smears against the ground. None withstood his fury, and scores were cut down as he waded through the demonic force. There was a shimmer to his right, and as he turned, a demon prince stepped forward, the beast's axe dripping with the blood of the Imperium's warriors. The demon raised his axe, sneering at the Emperor with jaws filled with teeth. "Now is when you die, anathema," the demon rumbled. "Fear me, for I have butchered thousands of your soldiers on thousands of worlds." "Bold words," the Emperor said, raising his own blade, but words with little meaning. The demon charged forward, swinging his axe in an arc towards the Emperor's head. The Emperor blocked with his power sword, sparks flying as the two weapons collided. He slipped out from under his attacker and swung out, but the demon parried and thrust forward, striking the Emperor in the chest with the blunt edge of the axe. The Emperor staggered back, but managed to block another strike from the demon. The Emperor struck again, aiming for the demon's head, but the beast blocked and countered, the axe missing the Emperor's head by inches. The two locked blades, the demon trying to force the Emperor back using his superior strength, while the Emperor's armor made it nearly impossible for him to be moved. "You are weak, anathema," the demon prince said. "Your subjects call you a god, yet here you are and you can barely overpower someone who is your equal." "You are not my equal." The Emperor pulled his left hand free of his sword and grabbed the demon's face. Warp flame erupted around the Emperor's hand, burning the demon and causing it to stagger back. Seeing his opening, the Emperor rushed forward and swung low, his power sword slicing through the demon's leg with ease. As the demon fell, the Emperor leapt up and landed on its back before plunging his sword deep into the demon's back, blood spilling over his gauntlet. The demon hit the ground with a crash, the Emperor withdrawing his sword and leaping clear before impact. "Forward, my sons! Cleanse the earth of the unclean." Fighting lasted until dawn. With the Emperor's return, the forces of chaos were put on the defensive. Up and down the line the demonic host was assaulted by the Emperor and his army, and soon the ground was coated black and red from the blood of both humans and heretics. Fighting shifted away from the palace and to the hives of Terra, the Emperor's forces fighting block by block against the heretics. The might of chaos was finally broken when, as more and more demons converged on the Emperor's position, a force of Baneblades supported by Leman Russ battle tanks struck the rear of the Chaos Army, throwing them into disarray and allowing the Emperor to slaughter them to a man. By the time the sun rose the next day, the forces of chaos were in full retreat, sliding back into the warp and headed towards the Eye of Terror. The Emperor stood atop a ruined monastery, looking out across the shattered world that was Holy Terra. Mighty cathedrals and palaces lay in ruins, and cities that once held some of the greatest of mankind were little more than piles of ash and rubble. The bodies of men, women and children lay in the streets, the sheer multitude of corpses blocking the ground from view. The shattered remains of predators, whirlwinds, land raiders, baneblades, basilisks, chimeras and thunderhawk gunships dotted the landscape, smoke billowing from destroyed engines and breached hulls. The war for the Imperium is over, he thought. But the war for the Imperium must still be won. He turned to the sound of boots crunching rubble and saw the remainder of his army, led by Heston, Cantor, Dante, and Titus. The assembled soldiers kneeled, turning their gaze down to avoid staring directly at him. "Lord," Titus said, "we have destroyed your enemies and fought with courage in your name. Now, command us as you would see fit." "Rise, my children," the emperor said, raising his hand. The soldiers of the Imperium rose as the emperor continued to speak. "You have fought well, and you have saved the Imperium from destruction at the hands of the ruinous powers. Your descendants shall remember this day and sing praises in your honor for as long as humanity rules the stars. But, I shall not be amongst you. Physically, at least." There was a murmur of confusion among the assembled soldiers, some looking to one another for some kind of explanation. "What do you mean, my lord?" Heston asked. "The ruinous powers are still at large, and they will continue to rebuild their forces until another assault can be launched," the emperor said, looking out across the ruined battlefield. "It may take thousands of years, but it is time that I do not wish for you to be paranoid about. So, I will ascend into the Imperium and battle the Chaos Gods myself, so that you may have a chance at a brighter future." "But Lord, who will rule the Imperium?" Dante asked. "Reform the Lords of Terra, with yourselves as its members. You fought to save the Imperium, it is only fitting that you be there to guide how it grows. This is my final command, that you rebuild the Imperium, free of the taint of chaos. Go out through the galaxy, and show the other races that humanity will remain a bastion amongst the stars." "Yes, Lord." The Emperor's forces bowed once again. "As you command." The Emperor nodded and turned back to the ruined landscape, arms outstretched. "I call upon the powers of the warp, for they are mine to command." The Emperor cried out, glowing energy rippling down his arms. At first, nothing happened, a small breeze blowing through the land. Then, a column of light engulfed the Emperor, bathing all humans' presence in an unearthly glow. When it dissipated, the Emperor had vanished, with only a small light to mark his presence. The warp is incomprehensible to most beings, it has no end, yet it contains borders, time flows slowly, yet events are over in an instant. There is no up or down, but there is direction, no gravity, yet there is weight. The closest thing a mortal could compare the warp to would be a sea being struck by a hurricane, and even that was nowhere near the whole truth. Standing amongst the blackness is the Emperor, a shining light in an otherwise cruel land. The storms of the warp lash against him, but his indomitable will scatters the storms about. He stands, waiting, preparing himself for the task at hand. "You have come a long way to die, anathema." A deep voice rumbles from the blackness. The Emperor is alerted to four beings, beings of unimaginable power and malice. "You know full well what shall happen today," the Emperor says. "Your reign as the masters of the galaxy is over. And you, a mere mortal, have come to deliver it?" A second voice wheezes from the void. "Oh, I just love when mortals become overconfident," says a third voice, younger and much more feminine. "It is so much more satisfying when they finally break. You assaulted me throughout the time I was in the throne. Every assault failed. And how do you know that wasn't the intended plan?" The final voice says. "Perhaps we wanted to make you feel confident, to draw you in where we could crush you fully. Your intimidation tactics won't work on me, Tzeentch. One of your prophets informed me of what would transpire here, that I would face off against you and your ilk in fair combat." "Fair? Fair? You are but a child pretending to be a warrior, you know not of fair combat, especially against the true masters. Your skull shall make a fine addition to my throne, anathema. You are nothing but a brute, corn. I smote the finest of your warriors and spilled the blood of your princes, and none of them provided me with anything resembling a decent fight." This draws a roar from the void. "You dare mock me? I am Korn, the god of warriors and bravery, the mightiest fighter to have ever traveled the warp. My army slaughtered millions before your pathetic race invented projectile weaponry. Each one of my followers is better than a legion of your underlings. If they are so brave, how come they ran in terror as I went to challenge them?" There is a snigger from the third voice and a growl from the first. The fourth voice sighs and speaks again. Fate has already spoken, our armies will clash, and the galaxy will be crushed. Army? He has no army. As if on cue, there is the sound of 1,000 metal boots marching in unison. The Emperor turns as shapes march out of the void, bolters and chainswords drawn. Their armor is black as night, their eyes glowing like burning embers. Behind them marches a second army, this one more numerous than the first. They bear the markings of countless regiments and chapters, the fallen of both space marines and guardsmen alike forming up behind him. He turns his attention back to the voices, spotting a horde of demons marching from the void. It matters not, Nurgle wheezes. You are outnumbered, and weaker than any one of us. I may be outnumbered, the Emperor raises his sword, but you are still outmatched. He thrusts his sword forward and charges, the legion of the damned and the souls of humanity's fallen warriors following behind him. The demonic armies roar and charge as well, rushing forward in an unending wave stretching on for millions of miles. The war for the Imperium lasts for eternities, yet is over in seconds. Demons and legionnaires slam into each other with a force to crush planets, weapons spitting forward hellfire and screaming like tearing metal. Millions are erased from existence itself, their souls crying out in the warp as if part of some otherworldly choir. Charges and sieges punctuate costly campaigns as the Emperor clashes with the forces of chaos. The first god to confront him is Tzeentch, the youngest and least experienced in combat of the four. Her forces are spent as the Emperor marches toward her refuge, monuments to pleasure and sensuality burning as he advances. With a mighty kick the gates of Tzeentch fall, the Emperor's forces pouring into the inner sanctums and slaughtering all that stand in their way. The Emperor raises his sword, advancing towards Tzeentch. The Chaos Lord of lust and pleasure, usually formless and unidentifiable, has taken the form of a woman, fair-skinned with deep violet eyes. She wears only a semi-transparent silk robe, tight against her body to reveal every single curve. She smiles at her foe, who ignores her charms as he advances towards her. So, I'm the first to deal with you? Tzeentch says, a girlish giggle slipping past her lips. I honestly feel honored by this. It will be fun to brag to Khorne that I was the one to bring you down. Silence, witch. The Emperor says. Your corruption of men's minds and wills shall end today. Corruption? Me? Tzeentch laughs. I do not corrupt men. I release them, show them their true capacity for pleasure and feeling. She walks forward, moving in such a way that would break the wills of lesser men. But you wouldn't know what that feels like, would you? You wrap yourself up in your armor and your regulations, cutting yourself off from the world around you. My body is like a palace, my soul a temple. Nothing shall desecrate it. Tzeentch laughs again. But what's a good temple without a good keeper to make sure it is clean and well kept? I provide a way for men to revive themselves, to make them feel alive. While you distract them from their tasks, turn them into depraved embarrassments to society, and consume their souls? I never said my followers were intelligent. Tzeentch reaches the Emperor and runs her hand down the side of his armor, tracing each icon as she goes. But still, total freedom is what I offer. Freedom to do whatever you want, to please and entertain yourself. You wish your people to be free, and I can help with that. You can do anything. The Emperor notices that she has slowly opened her robe, exposing soft pink flesh. With a jerk, he shoves her back and plunges his sword deep into her chest. Tzeentch gasps in shock and pain as the Emperor lowers her to the ground. Beware the seductress, he growls, driving the sword deeper into the Chaos Lord's chest. She draws men away from their tasks and fills their minds with images of impurity and corruption. They become complacent, immoral, devoted only to their pleasures while their lives crumble around them. She says she does so for their gain, but she cares only for pleasing her body. He leans in closer, glaring into Tzeentch's face. Purge the seductress from where she lies, burn her home and destroy her bed. Beat her and shame her, and cast her from your presence like the whore that she is. Only through purity of soul and body can true pleasure be achieved. He stands and yanks his sword from her body, which shatters into millions of fragments as he advances. Next to be met is Khorne, his massive fortress rising from the warp. Demons and beasts of all shapes and sizes charge towards the Emperor and his army, slaughtering dozens in their crazed attacks. Bolters, las guns and heavy cannons fire, shredding the assaulting demons and allowing the Emperor to advance. The Blood God stands at the base of his throne, a massive pile of blood-stained skulls both human and alien. No words are traded, no speech is given, the two raise their weapons and charge forward, their armies right at their heels. The clash of Khorne and the Emperor is a brutal affair, with the Emperor's speed and quick mind pitted against Khorne's strength and stamina. Each blow from his sword is matched with a blow from Khorne's axe, the two titans of battle never yielding. Warriors that are too slow to move out of the way are cut down or trampled beneath the feet of their leaders, and soon their struggle becomes the main focal point of the conflict. For thousands of years you mocked me, Khorne says, locking blades with the Emperor. You create your pathetic Astartes as a mockery of my demons, and you steal the souls that rightfully belong to me. They were never your souls to take. The Emperor says, breaking the lock and stepping back. Their blood was reaped, it seemed only fair I collect the rest. Somehow I don't believe that. Believe what you will, anathema. Khorne roars and charges forward, knocking the Emperor back and relieving him of his sword. The blood god raises his axe for the final blow, but the Emperor fires a bolt of lightning and strikes Khorne in the chest, knocking the chaos god back. The Emperor leaps for his sword and manages to grab it and block a swing from Khorne. Traitor! Coward! The blood god roars, swinging his axe wildly in an attempt to overwhelm the Emperor with a flurry of blows. You dare to use sorcery against me? You fool, I shall tear your soul apart for the rest of eternity. Did you say the same thing to Tzeentch when he first manipulated you? Or Celestia when she first charmed you into her bed? I had nothing to do with that self-centered whore. That's not what some of my followers say. Khorne surges forward again, screaming with fury, but he is so consumed in his rage and bloodlust that the Emperor is capable of dodging every strike with ease. Finally, deciding he has had enough, the Emperor sidesteps another charge and brings his sword down on Khorne's back, the blade slicing through the blood god and severing his legs from his body. Beware the warmonger, the Emperor says, pinning the dying Khorne with his foot. He speaks of fire, but strikes like a newborn. He orders his followers forward to great slaughter and bathes in the blood of battle, caring not for who wins, only that there is conflicts to revel in. He cares not for cause, because he lives on bloodshed. He creates weapons and makes speeches, but on the battlefield he cackles and dances, never once lifting a blade against his enemy. Purge the warmonger with fire and with steel, turn his weapons against him and force him to wallow in his own blood. Rally not to his words, but take cause against him, for battle without cause cannot be won, and only duty and devotion can carry the day. The Emperor raises his sword and with a mighty sweep removes Khorne's head. He picks it up from where it lays and tosses it against the fallen god's throne, splashing the skulls with fresh blood. Enjoy your place on your throne, Khorne. The Emperor cleanses his blade and advances as the fortress of the blood god crumbles to dust. Battle rages among the swamps and putrid sewers that support Nurgle's domain, corpse demons rising from the muck to attack the intruders. The stench of filth and disease fills the air, choking many and slowing the assault. The Emperor attacks with the power of the warp, lightning and fire burning demonic foes. The demons flee, driven from the field by his wrath. Why do you oppose me, anathema? Says Nurgle, the massive chaos lord, not much more than a bloated sack of rotting organs, diseased flesh, and dying bones that towers over the Emperor. I bring great gifts to the mortal realm, yet you come in here, slaughter my followers, and proclaim that I am evil. Your disease destroys men's souls as well as their bodies, the Emperor says, pointing his sword at Nurgle's head. You slaughter billions just to see if your latest creation works, and you turn your followers into mindless husks that do not know reason. They ask for it. I save them from pain, from having to suffer from wounds that would kill even the strongest of warriors. They no longer fear death, and thus can enjoy life. I do not see living as a bloated corpse as life. And without death, we fall into complacency and boredom, causing us to become further depraved and unclean. You do not have to lecture me on death, Nurgle chuckles before continuing. I know full well the cycle of life, death, and decay. I helped to create it, after all. I shower my children with love and kindness, helping them grow strong, and they love me for it. But those that your diseases don't kill, what of them? They despise you and curse your name, and they work hard to destroy your gifts as fast as they can. Your children are the most hated beings in the universe, and your love for them is the cause. You drive them away from the galaxy and constrict them within their own little worlds. That is why I ask them to spread my love, to bring gifts to others. And that is why I must destroy you. The Emperor leaps for Nurgle, his sword blazing with light. Nurgle swings out with his hand, striking the Emperor with a wet punch. As the Emperor falls away, a cloud of noxious gases rises from Nurgle's body, blanketing the area in a green haze. The Emperor struggles back to his feet, channeling his powers for attack. Nurgle swings again, but the Emperor becomes wreathed in flame, Nurgle's flesh sizzling once his attack connects. The flame expands outward, burning away the rot and disease and clearing the air as the Emperor strides forward, blade in hand. "Beware the plague bearer," the Emperor says as he blocks a strike from Nurgle. His body may appear clean, but his mind is desecrated. He spreads and encourages disease and filth, draining the wills and bodies of those around him. Nurgle pins the Emperor with a hand, but a swing from his sword removes the hand from the Chaos Lord's body. While others race to cure him, he devours their supplies and resources. He is a hungry beast, demanding more than what is needed to cleanse his body. As long as he stands, others shall fall into his ways. Purge the plague bearer, both in body and in mind. The Emperor leaps again, stabbing his blade into Nurgle's shoulder and hoisting himself up. Cut him off from society and cleanse his body with medicine and holy fire. Should others turn to his ways, burn out their heretical thoughts and scour their bodies of decay. Cleanse your world and your mind, and destroy those that would spread plagues and filth. Drawing from the warp, the Emperor blasts Nurgle with a column of lightning, tearing the Chaos God apart in ragged chunks. "I suppose my fall should be inevitable, anathema," Nurgle says, with no sign of hate or malice, before he sinks back into the swamp that was his home. The Emperor turns, but instead of leaving to find Tzeentch, he goes deeper into the swamp, searching for a light in the darkness. He finds that light in the form of an Eldar maiden, bound inside a closed-off area of Nurgle's realm. Her body is covered in sores and scars, residue from many of Nurgle's gifts to her, and her breathing is choppy from liquids collecting in her lungs. The Emperor steps forward, lowering his blade to calm the Eldar. "Why have you come here, human?" Aisha asks. "Your kind hates my people. Chaos drove your people to becoming what it is now. With Tzeentch slain, they can change. You will help them. You are an idealist, my kind is too arrogant to accept you, and yours is too fanatical to accept mine. I never said it would be easy." He raises his blade and swings, severing Aisha's bonds. The Eldar goddess stands, turning to face the Emperor. "May your blade be swift as you smite the Lords of Chaos, Emperor. Go in peace, Aisha, may you bring life back to a dying galaxy." Aisha bows and disappears, leaving the Emperor alone once again. He brings forth his blade again, the remaining specters of the Emperor's army forming up behind him. Tzeentch's realm stretches on, a mass of shifting pathways and mighty sorcerers. Warp flame and lightning rains down upon the forces of humanity, who responded with bolter fire and roaring blades. The Emperor blasts apart constructs with his powers, ripping through walls that should have been impenetrable, while his soldiers strike down all that stand in their path. "So, you finally arrived," the raven-like form of Tzeentch says. "A little behind schedule for my original plan, but then freeing the Eldar goddess was always an interesting factor to deal with. Enough with your prophecies, Tzeentch. Once you are dead, the might of chaos will be broken and the Imperium shall be free. So, you actually encourage stagnation? And you always struck me as the progressive type. Advancing is good, as long as there is not a malevolent power behind every man's step. Without me, there is no change, everything would stop and your precious Imperium would stay the same as it always was. I saw what you were trying to do, and let me say that without me your plan to have your best troops rebuild will fail if I am not there. Was there a realm where they succeeded without you? What? All fates have an inverse, a chance of going wrong. Was there a realm where they succeeded? Your question is rather irrelevant. You are wasting your time, and I do not wish to deal with you." Tzeentch is interrupted by a blast of warp flame from the Emperor. He disappears and reforms elsewhere in his maze, but the Emperor does not allow him to slip away that easily. Lightning arcs through the Imperium, chasing the god of change through his realm. "Answer me." The Emperor roars, launching more of his power at Tzeentch. Fine. Geez, you're worse than corn." Tzeentch lands on a ruined building, leering down at the Emperor. "Yes, I did see a world where my death did not stop the Imperium from prospering. No, it still wasn't a nice place, and no, it did not change very rapidly, but yes, it was getting better. However, the chances of you possibly causing that reality to happen. Your words alone make it so." The Emperor launches a psychic blast at Tzeentch, the Chaos God parrying with his own strike. Lightning collects around Tzeentch's hands before he thrusts them forward, a column of energy striking the Emperor in the chest and knocking him down. The Emperor pulls himself back up, but Tzeentch pounces on him, the two beings striking each other with as much force as they can muster. Tzeentch hurls the Emperor against a wall, the masonry crumbling as his armored form struck it. "This is real change, Emperor," Tzeentch yells, circling his opponent as the Emperor recovers. "How long has it been since you first felt pain such as this?" Since Horus tore you apart piece by piece? Your arrogance has cost you victory, and now your Imperium dies with you. Tzeentch leaps towards the Emperor, but he slams his fist into the Chaos Lord and pins him to the ground. My arrogance died the day I blasted Horus into the warp. It is your faith in what you see as the truth that has blinded you, for what are paths if there is no way to deviate from them? The Emperor's hand begins to glow, causing Tzeentch to struggle. Beware the silent manipulator. He hides in alleys and dark rooms, waiting for unsuspecting victims to stroll into his trap. He fills their heads with lies and points them down the path he designates. He sets them on rails to their doom, and when they try to fight back he wails and diverts them down another path until they have become lost inside a web of half-truths. Destroy the manipulator above all else, throw his plans in his face and refuse his offerings. Seek out trust and honesty, and consecrate yourself so you are not pulled in by soft words. Be truthful to those around you, and to yourself, for within the heart of every man lies the ability to judge the gods. The Emperor's hand is engulfed in flame, setting Tzeentch ablaze. The Chaos God screams and withers beneath his grasp, but is unable to break free. He burns, feathers and flesh melting under the intense heat, leaving only a charred skeleton pinned beneath the Emperor's fist. Embrace the change of your death, Tzeentch. The Emperor stands as Tzeentch's lair collapses. With no gods to rule them, the remaining demons scatter to the farthest reaches of the warp, many dying of psychic backlash from their masters dying. Mighty storms break through the warp, consuming everything and sending the Legion of the Damned swirling off into the unknown. It is one of these storms that the Emperor allows himself to be claimed by. He disappears, his being flying through the warp like a leaf on the wind. Through reality he flies, carted away to realms untouched by chaos, untouched by anything that reached his home galaxy. The warp is in disarray, and a new ruler steps forward. Igneous rock was the only thing to stop the Emperor's fall. He tumbled head over heels until crashing into a cooled lava flow, shattering the rocks and scattering them to the wind. He groaned and pulled himself up, shaking his body to remove any remaining fragments. The warp is finished, he said, but I expected it to take me instead of leaving me. Somewhere. He looked up at the sky, seeing only smoke and the stars beyond them. In the distance, volcanoes spewed out magma and ash, choking the landscape under a blanket of suffocating toxins. This world is young. Very young. Tzeentch probably planned to cast me here in the event of his defeat, he sighed, raising a hoof to his head. Perhaps I should find a way to re-enter the warp and make sure that he's fully. Wait, hoof? The Emperor pulled back. Sure enough, where his right hand should have been was now a snowy white hoof. He blinked, waving the hoof in front of his face to make sure he was actually seeing the truth. He turned his head and gasped. 4 legs ending in hooves. A slender frame. Eagle's wings. A tail and mane comprised of 3 colors, all moving in some unseen wind. A stylized sun on each rear flank. I am a Xenos? The Emperor asked before placing a hoof against his throat. His voice had raised several octaves, and was now much more bell-like and regal rather than harsh and commanding. A female Xenos? For whatever reason, his eyes drifted to the top of his head and saw a horn protruding from his skull. What the frack happened to me?